Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Audit Committee to order, please. As 3 of our Audit Committee members are unable to be with us here today, all votes today are going to be moved to Wednesday. Michelle, are there any public speakers?
No, Madam Chair, we have no public speakers today.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the September 25th minutes. Any corrections or changes? And I guess the minutes are going to be sent for a vote on Wednesday. Next, Michelle, can you take us through the work plan, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. There will be 4 meetings this year, and the specific agenda items can be found on pages 8 and 9. There are 4 changes to the work plan. A presentation on the 2019 pension financial statements will be added to the July Audit Committee meeting. A review of the Inspector General expenses for 2019 will be moved forward and presented in the July Audit Committee meeting. The annual IT report was last presented in May 2019 and will therefore be moved to the April Audit Committee. And finally, the presentation on security-sensitive data was postponed from the September 2019 Audit Committee meeting as it was in the process of being finalized. This presentation was given to the full board at the November meeting, and an update will be provided at a later date.
Okay, since there's no members, there's no questions, and there's no votes, we're going to move that to Wednesday. Next up, we have Deloitte to present the results of the review of the third quarter 2019 MTA consolidated interim financial statements. The financial statements will be issued in final form from the Audit Committee review after the Audit Committee review and approval. Jill Stonemeyer, Managing Director, will give the presentation. Jill, how are you, Jill?
Hi, how are you? Good, thank you. Before we begin, I just want to introduce my team.
Yes, please.
I have Kevin Richards to my right, who's my advisory partner on the account, and then my senior manager, Sharka Vogel, who worked on the pension plan audits that we'll discuss in a few moments.
Welcome to you both.
Thank you. So we have reviewed, we were engaged to review the MTA's interim financial information for the 9-month period ended September 30th, 2019. And our procedures consisted primarily of analytical analyses as well as inquiries with management. The financial statements in front of you are consistent with the prior quarter, Q1 and Q2 of 2019, and they reflect the adoption of GASB Statement 84 related to fiduciary activities. There were no adjustments made as a result of our procedures this quarter. There were no deficiencies in internal controls that we identified during our quarter procedures. And other than the adoption of GASB 84, there were no significant changes to accounting policies or procedures. Upon approval Wednesday, we will be in a position to issue an unmodified opinion on these financial statements, which is a clean opinion.
Great.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It's actually refreshing to hear that everything is clean, right? That's the word I was looking for, right? All right. Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Naomi Lopez, MTA Acting Controller, to provide management reviews of the 2018 employee benefit financial statements, including a discussion on the management's analysis and the required supplementary information to the financial statements. Naomi?
Good afternoon, everybody. This presentation is on page 136 of the committee book. Today in your committee book, let me see how you do this. Okay. Today in your committee book, you have 6 audited financial statements of the MTA's benefit plans. There are 4 defined benefit plans: the MTA DB, the MAP STOA pension plan, the Long Island Railroad additional plan, and the Metro North cash balance plan. We also have the deferred compensation program, which is comprised of the 401k and 457 plans. And lastly, we also have the MTA retiree welfare benefits plan, also known as the OPEB plan. Shown in this slide is a listing of the total net assets of the plans, with the MTA DB plan having the largest assets at $4 billion, with a membership totaling a little over 31,000. The financial statements are prepared in accordance with GAAP accounting principles as required by GASB. The benefit plan financial statement is composed of the MD&A, the basic financial statements, the notes to the financial statements, and required supplementary information. This slide shows that for the fiscal year 2018, GASB Statement Number 85, titled Omnibus 2017, was implemented by the plans. Specifically, GASB 85 addresses practice issues identified during the implementation of certain GASBs relating to topics such as blending component units, goodwill, fair value, pensions, and OPEB. The adoption of this GASB had no impact to the pension plan financials. Now, in this schedule, we have an overview of all the plans, the pension plans, that the MTA contributes to. We have the single employer pension plans, which are the 4 that we just went over. And then we have the 2 multi-employer cost-sharing pension plans. One of the cost-sharing pension plans is the New York State one, called Neisler's, in which the MTA has a very small membership of 0.35% and basically covers MTA headquarters employees. The other plan is the New York City plan, the Neisler's plan, in which the MTA has approximately 25% membership, and that covers employees from both New York City Transit and Bridges and Tunnels. From this schedule, you'll see that we have total pension liabilities for both types of plans totaling $32.8 billion. We also have plan assets of totaling $25.2 billion, giving us a net pension liability of $7.6 billion. This is the MTA's unfunded liability, and on the GASB 68, it's reflected in the MTA's financials as a pension liability. We also show the funded ratio for each of the plans, and the funded ratio is the ratio of the plan assets to the liability. And on average, we're about 76.9% funded. The next slide shows a map of the United States showing the funding ratios by state for pension plans as of 2017 data. As you can see, Wisconsin and South Dakota are overfunded at 102.9% and 100.1% respectively. New York State has a funding ratio of 94.5%. The MTA is inserted at 76.9. This just gives you an overall view of where the funding ratio is by state across the country. And the last slide is a map of the United States, also showing the funding ratios by state for the OPEB plans. The data is as of 2016. The map shows that a majority of the OPEB plans, namely about 40 state OPEB plans, are funded at less than 30%. MTA's OPEB plan is funded at 1.76. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you,
Any
Nate.
questions?
Thank you, Naomi. So now to continue the discussion on pension plans, Jill, you'll discuss the results of the audit of the various pension plans that Naomi just spoke about.
Yes, thank you. In front of you, you should have a document that looks something like this from Deloitte, and I'll take you through this document. So we have performed the audits of the financial statements of the MTA's defined benefit pension plan, deferred compensation program, the Metro-North Commuter Railroad cash balance plan, the MEB-STOA pension plan, the Long Island Railroad additional plan, as well as the MTA Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan as of and for the year ended December 31st, 2018, in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. And we expect to issue our opinion upon approval, I believe, Wednesday. On page 2 lays out our responsibility under generally accepted auditing standards. We have evaluated the significant accounting policies. They're in notes, I believe, 1 and 2 to the plan's financial statements. Some of those significant accounting policies include investments, actuarial liabilities, and I believe that's probably the 2 main ones. During the year ended December 31st, 2018, we are not aware of any significant changes in accounting policies or in the plan's management judgments relating to such estimates. During the year, there were no uncorrected misstatements or disclosure items passed identified during our audits. There were no material corrected misstatements that were brought to the attention of management as a result of our audit procedures. We did not have any disagreements with management throughout the year. We're not aware of any consultations that management had with other accountants related to auditing or accounting matters during 2018. We received the full cooperation of plans management and staff and had unrestricted access to records and documents during the performance of our audits. Laid out on pages 4 through 7 or 4 through 6 are other matter paragraphs that we are required to, under the standards, required to have within our auditor's report. They relate to the identification of required supplementary information. These paragraphs are similar, if not the same, to last year's reports. And then finally attached to the back are management representation letters. These are letters that we're required as your auditors to receive from management prior to the issuance of our auditor's reports. So upon receiving those letters and the approval of the committee, we'll be in a position to issue our reports final.
Great. Thank you, Jill. And as Jill stated before, we're going to wait till Wednesday to take these votes. Rob, but before we do that, Rob has a question.
Am I allowed to, since I'm not a member, can I go back to Deputy Commissioner Lopez on the issue of the OPEB liability, which you put up a table, and of which I initially thought the 1.76 was that we are more than 100% funded, but what we're really saying is we're 1.76 out of 100.
Yeah,
And
that's correct.
So what are the implications of that?
Well, basically, the reason we're underfunded in the aspect of all the other states is we do pay as you go. We don't really do additional contributions. We're not required to. That's a senior management decision in terms of how we go about doing that. But that's really why most state plans are underfunded.
Yeah. Unlike pensions, it's not a requirement. It is voluntary on our part. We started setting monies aside in prior years for this purpose. I think we ended up with about $400 million more at one point in time that we've drawn down. The state does not put money aside for this. The city, as you know, puts money into a reserve, but I believe the reserve that they have, there may be a portion that is trusteed, and this is trusteed money. And then the city also puts money in effectively a reserve that you can use for also current expenses. But in the municipal industry, we have not, as a rule, we have not been required, and people have not put the money aside. If we had resources, we would put monies aside once we were fully funded in terms of our pension plans, because I believe that the pension plans are key first. But right now, it is the practice within the municipal industry to do this on a pay-as-you-go basis.
So these are things like retiree health.
Yes.
And other benefits other than pensions that people see later on when they depart.
Yes.
So it was just,
No, it
as
is.
I comment, it was a major concern with New York City, where I think we were at the 30-some-odd% funded level, if I'm right, but I may be wrong.
I
You think
think
it's high?
you're significantly less than that, but
Less than
we
that.
can check.
But not, I don't ever recall hearing it 1.76%.
The fact that we have money set aside at all is pretty unique. This is, I mean, it's an issue. Now, I think there's thought that there is perhaps a greater obligation or greater protection for pension obligations, perhaps than there might be for employee health care, because in many cases there may be the ability to have employees contribute in the future, retired employees contribute, or you could change the plan. But there are certain plans have constitutional protection, as you know, for pension benefits. But this is an issue that, as of right now, there is no requirement to put it in, and I do believe that it's a looming issue out there. It's a looming issue.
Continuing with Jill and Deloitte, Jill, you're going to brief the committee on the results of the review of the MTA Inspector General's 2018 office operations and expenses based on agreed-upon audit procedures.
Yes, so Deloitte was engaged to perform agreed-upon procedures in accordance with the attestation standards issued by the AICPA. In front of you is our report related to those procedures. We performed 14 action items related to vouching certain expense and budget data back to source documents. We had no findings as a result of our 14 procedures. And that's really all I have to say about this report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jill. We'll vote on that on Wednesday. Next, we have Lamont Kurst, MTA Chief Compliance Officer, who will brief the committee on select aspects of the Enterprise Risk Management Program and agency compliance with the MTA's internal control guidelines. This includes revisions to the guidelines that ensure that MTA is consistent with the updated standards of COSO. Lamont?
Thank you very much. I have provided you an update in your committee book regarding the status of the MTA's internal control program. That can be found on page 117. I am not going to go through the entire report today, but would like to highlight certain items that are contained within the executive summary. We have completed control testing for 2019. We have reviewed 952 business processes, resulting in 106 deficiencies, of which only 7 are considered significant. Remediation plans have been created and are in the process of being implemented. Including those 7 deficiencies just noted, we have a total of 12 open significant deficiencies. The staffs are eagerly working on closing those as quickly as possible. Any questions? Great. Also, as you'll note on the executive summary, we are in the process of replacing our current governance, risk, and compliance program. We are moving to a new platform called RSA Archer. We have completed phase 1, which is policy management and issue management. Employees have access to our new policy portal. Between the dates of February 1st to February 14th of this year, we have over 4,000 hits to that portal alone. As it relates to issues management, again, that module is fully operational, and we are in the process of working with audit services to input data into that module. Phase 2 is also live at this point, which includes risk management, control testing, and regulatory compliance. This phase has been completed and is currently being populated with the necessary data. The final phase that we have right now is phase 3, which includes ethics management, business continuity impact analysis, third-party risk management, and IT security risk management. We have in the process of final design and testing, and we actually hope to start the pilot beginning this Friday. If you have any questions on that report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Lamont. We're going to vote on this on Wednesday with,
No, the second part, I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry.
So we've included internal control guidelines. The board is required to adopt internal control guidelines pursuant to Public Authorities Law. We are proposing revisions to those guidelines in order to the MTA to maintain consistency with COSO standards. That requires a vote.
Great. Which we'll do on Wednesday.
That's correct.
Thank you.
The
Okay.
final thing is compliance with the Internal Control Act. You will see in your book certifications from myself and Chairman Pat Foy that the MTA's program is compliant with the requirements of the Internal Control Act for New York State.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Lamont. Next, we have Michelle. Acting Auditor General, who will discuss the MTA audit service activities and accomplishments in 2019 and present the proposed audit plan for 2020. Michelle?
Good afternoon. I would like to update the committee on the year-end status of the 2019 audit plan and present a summary of the proposed 2020 audit plan. Our mission in MTA Audit Services is to provide insightful, proactive, and future-focused quality results while promoting governance, considering risks and controls, and identifying organizational improvements. I would like to thank my direct reports, Darren Jurgens and Phyllis Richardson, who are here today.
Come on, yeah,
Thank you. As well as the entire audit staff for the results that we achieved in 2019. We completed 154 operational and assurance audits, including onboard and pension QA support projects. We made 409 recommendations within these audits to improve transparency, governance, and internal controls while reducing risk. These audits identified potential cost savings and efficiency opportunities of $24.9 million. We also performed 172 audits related to the capital projects. This work included a review of cost proposals as well as interim and closeout audits to ensure contract billings are in accordance with the contract terms. When we requested, we assisted management in the review of claims to ensure any increases were justified. These third-party audits resulted in question costs of $30.7 million for the year. Our past experience has demonstrated an 80% recovery rate for question costs. Our assurance audits were well received by management this year and include the following highlights. We performed 2 medical benefit audits at New York City Transit, the prescription drug plan, which was discussed at the September Audit Committee, and a review of medical benefits eligibility for divorced members, where we identified inaccurate or missing information related to divorce effective dates, medical benefit termination, and marital status, which resulted in $530,000 in overpayments. Further, we noted the last dependent eligibility verification audit, or DEVA, was performed in 2010. The industry standard is every 3 to 5 years. Management believes that the prior DEVA resulted in significant cost savings, estimated at $15 million a year, where ineligible dependents were removed from coverage. They've agreed to move forward with an initiative to update the DEVA for New York City Transit. We also perform operating contract reviews where we identify potential areas of overpayment. We did 2 unique contracts this year, which resulted in a $5.1 million cost recovery and $1.4 million for 2 of the contracts reviewed. We also look at operational audits, so we did an audit of track operations. New York City Transit Subway Action Plan has made significant improvements in many areas, including track, and as a result, delays attributed to track conditions are down. We identified 2 areas for further improvement related to reported defects with the risk of materials falling and areas of significant debris where management took immediate action to address our concerns. On the IT front, we looked at patch management in the Unix environment. They have over 200 servers which support critical business operations. We found that security patch updates were not consistently and timely implemented in certain areas, and some servers were no longer supported. Stronghold controls are critical to reduce the potential risk of these systems being exposed to security vulnerabilities. We also continued to review payments made by the BSC to identify potential duplicates. We've been doing this since the BSC was implemented. BSC processes approximately 379,000 payments, totaling $10.4 billion from October 2018 through June 2019. Our reviews identified only 102 duplicates with an overpayment of $1.2 million. Management took immediate action to recover the duplicate payments. Within our capital contract audit function, we have 2 specialized units, the Sandy Audit Unit and the Engineering Audit Unit. With the approval of the Audit Committee, we established the Sandy Oversight Committee in conjunction with the MTA IG to perform independent integrity monitoring services for those projects which receive FTA emergency funding. In compliance with our commitment to the FTA, our Sandy Audit Union continued to perform assurance audits and reported the results to the FTA on a quarterly basis. Key Sandy projects reviewed in 2019 include the Canarsie Tunnel, the Metro North Power Infrastructure Restoration, and prevailing wages. Since this unit was established in 2013, we've completed 127 projects, made 341 recommendations with cost adjustments of $60.2 million. We have committed to the FTA that we will continue to follow up on all Sandy recommendations and work with the agencies to ensure that the recommendations were implemented. MTA Audit Services also became responsible for New York City Transit engineering audit functions over 10 years ago. The City of New York Office of the Controller requires agencies that receive funding from New York City to appoint an engineering audit officer. This requirement is outlined in the Internal Control and Accountability Directive 7, which covers the audit of payment vouchers issued under contracts for construction, equipment, and related consultant services. In 2019, this audit unit completed 123 audits of payment vouchers worth $81.6 million and recommended approximately $2 million in cost adjustments, which were primarily due to timing. The MTA Audit Services also has 2 management support functions within the area, the Railroad Onboard Revenue Compliance Program and the Pension Quality Assurance Reviews. For the onboard program, Metro North and Long Island Railroad trains are boarded by MTA audit personnel and consultants which work for us to ensure that conductors are collecting the correct fare and that they are in compliance with the standard operating procedures. The results of our observations are reported monthly to both agencies, including a fare not collected rate, incorrect fare collected, conductor not seen, and the results of other special observations that were performed as requested by management. In 2019, this group completed 4,425 observations at Long Island Railroad and 4,235 observations at Metro North. The results of the observations were reported by the agencies to their individual committees. The second group is the Pension Quality Assurance Function. It was established at the request of HQ Management. This group reviews the pension calculations of the defined benefit plan for Metro North, MTA Police, MTA Bus, and Long Island Railroad's open and closed plans. They provide pension management daily with the results so that corrections can be made prior to the payments being processed. Quarterly reports summarizing the quality assurance review results are also provided to pension management to identify trends and areas for reinstruction. In 2019, the auditors reviewed 1,622 pension calculations and identified 90 errors with financial impact as well as 140 errors with no financial impact.
Michelle, before you go,
Sure.
Commissioner Albert has a question.
Sure.
On your audit of NYC Transit's track operations, are you looking at everyday operations or places where GOs are taking place?
So what we did in the So in that track audit, to identify the areas where there was potential for debris falling, we looked at, they have a database, a defect database, where they track all of the defects that they had identified, and we did a search using our audit command language in all of the comment sections and looked for any areas of debris. So it's in general, it's all of their areas where they have track.
Did you come unannounced, or were they prepared for you?
We did do some field observations, and we are unannounced, particularly where we're going, but we in most instances have someone from track with us, because if there's an area of concern that we identify, we want them to be able to take immediate action.
Safety, right. Thank you, Michelle. Move forward on 2020?
Okay. At this point, I would like to review with the committee the 2020 audit plan process and a summary of the proposed audit plan. We begin our planning process in September, and it takes us several months to complete, resulting in a comprehensive risk assessment which is fully documented. The foundation of the audit plan was developed through a formal risk assessment that is performed in accordance with the Institute of Internal Auditor standards. Consistent with prior years, the risk assessment sources that we use to identify the audit universe include financial data, an assessment of the nature of operations, control activities, and previous audit results. With consideration of these sources, we prepare a list of possible audit areas, which we further develop during our interviews with management. We conducted 82 interviews within the agencies and identified 170 suggested audits. We removed duplicates and those audits where recent reviews have been conducted or there was a low risk to the organization. We then developed a proposed audit plan with 104 operational assurance audits for 2020. I recently met with the agency presidents to discuss the proposed plan and obtain their suggestions and agreement with the proposed plan. I also discussed the level of staffing needed to complete the proposed plan with the chairman and the vacancy control committee, and received the approval to hire and maintain the needed staff level of 60. I believe this is an appropriate level to adjust the areas of risk we've identified for 2020 and to complete the plan, including the support functions required by management.
I have a question, Michelle.
Sure.
How did you determine it was 82 interviews had to be conducted, or?
We have always met with the agency presidents, their direct reports, and then another layer down within the agencies.
Got it, okay.
So this chart is just a snapshot of where the 104 audits are within the 2020 plan. Within service delivery, we will ensure management continues to inspect and maintain their systems in a state of good repair. In finance, we will closely monitor actions taken by management related to the implementation of the new biometric timekeeping systems and oversight and assignment over overtime. For safety, we will perform audits of initiatives such as the fare evasion, homeless outreach, and requested safety reviews during drug testing and hazardous waste management. In human resources, we will focus on medical benefits as well as employee availability, and will perform revenue audits at each agency. In addition to our third-party reviews of capital contracts, we will continue with our Sandy and Engineering Audit Office audits. We also plan to perform force account reviews at several agencies to ensure in-house charges to the capital program are appropriate. Our procurement audits will continue to ensure we spend our resources effectively and efficiently and in accordance with the contract terms and conditions. Finally, our technology audits will support the consolidated organization and cover areas such as change management and cybersecurity. This slide is just it's a visual representation of where we spend our assurance audit time at the agencies. Headquarters is higher than it's been in recent years, primarily due to the consolidation of different functions, technology being one of them. So now all of those audits, although the technology audits themselves may be at specific agencies, we show the time in headquarters, and that's why it's a much greater size than it used to be. This next slide is not one that we have shown before, but I wanted to depict kind of the different functions that we do within audit. So that shows the assurance audits that we talk about, but also the capital audits that we do, and then those onboard and the pension programs that we are responsible for currently.
Great, thank you.
In summary, for 2020, we will focus our efforts to support the transformation initiatives of the MTA to improve efficiency and effectiveness of operations. We will support agency-wide goals with respect to timekeeping and overtime and evaluate contractor performance. Finally, we will work closely with the internal control group to track the implementation of recommendations in the new GRC Archer system, and continue to coordinate our activities throughout the year with external parties, including the external auditors, the City and State Comptroller's Office, and the MTA OIG.
Great, thank you. So we're going to vote on the proposed audit plan for 2020 on Wednesday. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda before we adjourn is a presentation by Michael Garner, who I don't see. Where is Michael? Oh, there you are. Sorry, Michael, I didn't see you. I apologize. Come to the table. Michael is the MTA Chief Diversity Officer, and he will present the status of the Department of Diversity and Civil Rights Performance Measures.
Thank you, and afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Ray Burke is going to give a brief presentation on the project closeouts, site visits, and the MW SDVOB inclusion with regard to third track.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
An update as far as our inactive contracts. Currently, as of December 31st, 2019, it was 1,529 inactive contracts, of which 95% was closed. Okay, this screen shows the activity of the 95% broken down by quarter. Next. The next screen shows our site visit performance since the third quarter of 2015 to the end of the fourth quarter 2019, where we performed 2,900 site visits, with the last quarter in 2019 doing 162 site visits. Our last slide details our third track project, which consists of 2 contracts. One is the main contract, which is currently valued at $1.5 billion. And the second contract is the consultant contract, which consists of $65 million. Both contracts have a goal of 15, 15, and 6. Excuse me, 15, 15, and 6 on the contract. The main contract is now 47% complete. The consultant contract is 43% complete. The main contract is achieving 4.5% MBE attainment, 6.7% WBE attainment, and 0.02 SDVOB attainment. The consultant contract is at 13.8% MBE and 18% WBE. And they're exceeding the
Right.
goal.
Oh, that was my question. Okay,
Yes.
so based on, okay.
Overall, they're exceeding the
Great,
goal.
perfect.
So on the main contract, we are working diligently with Jano and his staff to make sure that the 36% MW and SDVOB goals that were assigned are going to be achieved. It's going to be a challenge, but we're going to work in tandem together to make sure that those goals are achieved. And Ray talked about our site visits. Each one of our MWDB contract managers are required to perform at least 8 site visits per month. They are there to make sure that the MWBE firms are actively involved and they are working in their certification categories, and to also work in conjunction with Audit and the IG's office if there are any red flags with firms not working in their areas or not serving a CUF, which is a commercial useful function.
Okay. And are the site visits announced, unannounced?
Yes, they are. They are announced. They are coordinated with the respective project manager.
Okay.
And the other one was our closeouts. And so, as Michelle Woods know, that we are taking a very aggressive approach with ensuring that the agencies are closing out their projects. And the reason being is because the FTA requires us to report the DBE activity on projects that's closed out. And so if we're not closing out our projects, we cannot report our DBE results. And so they are currently about 15 to 16 projects that we are tracking right now with the agencies.
Correct.
And so I will be better able to report on those 15 contracts that's been lingering at the next audit committee meeting.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Not? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ray. So we're going to continue. I'm not going to conclude, right? Okay. All right, we're adjourning till Wednesday morning. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.